Good morning, everyone. Let me know if you can
Good morning.
and see the screen.
Yeah, sir.
Thank you. So let's start. We will probably, sorry, I think title is wrong. I should change it to scope and lifetime. So today we will look at and discuss when we define a variable, what is the scope and what is the lifetime. Often we get confused between the two as the same thing, which is not true. So I'll try to give an example where does scope is and where does lifetime is. I mean, certainly a variable has to have a life before it can be used, but it can still have a life outside your scope. Is something like all of us have grown in our household and we have a nickname in our house. It may be name could be Guddu, Tommy, Pappu, whatever the nickname in the house. So when somebody, my mom calls me Guddu in my house, the nickname Guddu is only applicable within the house, but not outside. But that does not mean when I go out of the house, I don't exist. I still exist. So lifetime refers to how long the variable would exist in a program. The scope will define to where one can be using it. And we'll try to basically also look at the functions when I try to can something be defined to the functions in addition to the variable. And when we write our programs, one skill we need to have is how to use a debugger. Quite often we are told to use printf to debug. We write a printf, I reached here, reaching line number so and so, entering, exiting a function or something. And that is the one of the loudest way of debugging a program. That was good enough when we didn't have debuggers. But now that we have debuggers, we should use them. So whether you use your code block, which comes with its own built-in debugger, whether it's online GDB, GDB stands for GNU debugger, that means online debugging, or use any IDE such as Visual Studio or any other stuff, you should be able to use debugger and work with it. So those who are using online GDB, they can refer to this link, or you can look at online GDB, the debugger details, and read about it. It tells you how to debug a program. And I'd like to give you a minor demo how to use it. But of course, you need to access it, work with it, experience it, use it often so that you become comfortable. Cover the basic steps, but it is you need to spend time yourself to look into that. So let us look at scope. Consider the following function. If you look at this function, I'm passing a parameter num to this function. And what I'm assuming is this function will maintain some variable called current max. And if the new number is greater than the current max, it will set current max and then return that current max. Now, when you start defining a max, you set it to the lowest possible value. So in C program, there is a header file called limits.h, and there are two hash defines, which is called int main and int max, that gives you lowest minimum value and the highest maximum value an integer can have. So int main is the lowest minimum. So start with lowest minimum and keep rendering. Now in this program, if you look at, because I have defined this function current max, I defined this variable current max within this function. That means the scope of this variable, where it can be referred to, where this variable can be used, is within this function only. If you try to use this variable cur max outside this function, it's going to return you an error. So escape of a variable is from the point you define till end of that nesting block. So the function block is from here to here. So both the variables num and current max are applicable within this. Now, since this is a local variable within the function, what about its life? It comes into existence when a function is invoked. So the local variable, the current max, and the parameter num come into life only when this function is invoked, function start executing, and the moment function is returned, function is over, return from the function or exit from the function, those variables life into exist, they are no more existing. So you can't use them, they don't have any more value. However, if you provide a mechanism such that even though the function exists, even though we return from the function, we exit from the function, variable could persist. We may not be able to, but it can still exist. As I said, oh, my nickname is existing. People, my parents, my family calls me by nickname within the house. The nickname cannot be used outside the house. But as a person, I exist outside the house. But whenever I come to my home, I can be used by nickname. So scope of the nickname, like Guddu, Pappu, Bunty, Bablu, whatever name you want to use, those names can be used within the house, and that is, so where you can use it, access it, that defines the scope. Where do you exist? That defines the lifetime. So of course you need to exist before you can be accessed. So life should be there. But if I don't give a specific thing, the life comes into existence the moment function start executing it, and it is over when the function returns. Now we'll give a another attribute characteristics to this variable. I define its attribute called state. If I define a static at keyword in front of a variable, that basically says that this variable has a life outside this function as well. That means this function returns variable does not die, variable still exists. So lifetime of this variable current max exists outside the function. So first time we invoke the function, which would be minus 2 raised to power 32, something of that kind. But after that, when second time the function is invoked, it will take the value whatever last time was set. When third time the function is invoked, this is not assigned, but it will be whatever the last time value set. Because this by static keyword, we define the life of the function, we define the life of the variable outside this function. But scope of this variable is within this function only. You cannot access this variable current outside this function, but by static, this this variable would exist. So to any variable within a block, if you prefix it with the keyword static, the lifetime and telling the lifetime of the variable would exist outside the block. Just because the block goes away, variable will not go away. But if you do not define the static prefix to a variable, away, the variable also cease to exist and variable also go away. And that's the difference between lifetime and the lifetime of variable and the scope of a variable. Same is true for what we call functions. Now, if we look at our functions, I define the function fn min. Now, this function fn min, I define prefix with keyword static. When you prefix a function with the keyword static, the behavior of the function changes. Now, this function, when I define it, this function can be used within this file. When the keyword static was not there, this function fn_min could have been used anywhere in any other file. But by defining it with a keyword static, the moment we prefix function name with keyword static, we are saying the scope of this function is within this program file. So you can access this function fn_min within this wherever it is defined. You cannot access this function outside this file. And that is what the fn_min basically would do. You can't use it, that's what would happen. So one has to be clear about using a keyword static to a function name that indicates that function is visible within that file, can be invoked, can be used only within that file. But when I use the same keyword static in front of my variable, that tells the variable exists outside the scope, but scope is within that particular block. And that is what one you would like to see, understand that. I'll try to give you two examples, and then we talk about both file names, function names, and the parameters names. So let me give a simple example, and then I'll come to let's look at this program segment. Sorry. Can you can- Hello? Amrita, can you see the program?
Yeah, sir.
You can see the program. Can somebody let me make a bigger screen?
Yeah, sir. Sir.
Can
Can
you
see.
tell me what would the output be? What would the output be of this program? Please note, I have used only one variable, I all across. I haven't used any other variable. And I talked about overriding this variable all through. Normally, I don't code two lines statement the same line, but to make sure that it's visible, I put them in two lines. Otherwise, just there should be three lines. So leave with that part. And there should be semicolon there. So assume a semicolon there. What would the value be if you look at this is my for block. This is my another for block. Let me correct it. Yeah. So this is my one for block. This is my second for block. And this is my third for block. And this is my function block. And remember, this is a global variable as well. Now, given that, and I'm calling this function from my main. Main is the first entry point. So what would the values be printed when I run this program? थोड़ा guys, you need to respond when I'm take your names. Apeksha. Looks like none of you are here. Simply it goes away. Apeksha. What would be the first time I come here? What would the value be? And what would the value be printed here? So first time, this is the first print statement. The second print statement. What would the value printed be? Arvind. Aslam.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. What would the value printed be? First, I am here.
In the
When
first
I invoke this
statement,
function, it comes here. What would the value
what
printed be?
printed B will be 1, sir.
Why?
Because I is less than 100, I think.
Look, I have defined this. If you see that this is one more block here.
Yes, sir.
When I define a one more block here, I gets a value minus 500.
Minus 500.
So whatever the values are there before, those are overridden by this I.
Plus 500, sir.
Why plus 500?
Because the first statement was I is equal to 500. Main function is I.
It is minus 500. And then I'm doing I plus plus.
Sir, is it 499?
It will be minus 499. So first time you come here, it will be printing minus 499. Now, when outside this block, what would the value printed here? The innermost loop.
101.
Why 101? 100? I'm putting a toy example so that you can understand the scope. Yeah, reason it out so that you understand. I'm glad that you're speaking, at least you understand what is happening. Just who said 101? Please tell your name so that I can make out, otherwise I can't see.
Sir, I'm Lokaranjan.
Yeah, Lokranjan, yeah, tell me Lokranjan. Why this should be 101 and not 100?
Sir, you're adding 1 to it, sir.
Where? I'm adding 1 to I within this block. See, this is the curly braces, this is a block. And this I refers to this I only. Because I defined the I locally, this I plus plus refers to only this I. This does not refer to any of those I's. Did you get it?
Yes, sir.
So what the value printed would be? It starts with 100. It will print 100.
Sir, but then
Is
what
that
about
okay?
the increment operator next to?
So what I'm telling you, so look at this inner block. So this is a block.
Yes, sir.
There's a block here, if we look at.
Yes, sir.
Because it is a block, And because I have defined int I in the block,
Yes, sir.
so this I would be used within this block. If there
Yes,
was
sir.
any I outside this block, it does not exist. They're all hidden.
Oh, so the increment operator outside the blocks are of like they are
Now we'll
not.
come to that. We'll come to
Okay.
that.
Okay.
This I plus plus,
Yes, sir.
can you see where my
That's
cursor
used
is?
only inside the block.
That is inside the block.
Okay.
So that I plus plus
Now
is
outside
only
the
for
block,
that
I'm a
block,
for
no, sir.
loop.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, repeat again, please.
That I plus plus is only for that block, no, sir.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
So I'm saying, look, for this block, I'm putting static int I. I'm saying this I has an existence, has a life outside this block, but can be used only within the block. Understand the difference.
Yes, sir.
This variable I can be used, referred to only within this block, but has a life outside the block.
Okay, sir.
We'll come to that. So first time you come is minus 500, I plus plus makes it minus 499, it prints 499. The moment we come out of the block, this I vanishes. This I is no more accessible, no more available.
Yes, sir.
Its value is minus 499, that will exist when you come back to this inside. But the moment I'm outside this I vanishes. What I access is this I. And in this for loop, I will start from 100. So I'll print 100 first. And next time when this is over, we'll make it plus plus. Now, because this block is over, we come back, it increments, I becomes 101. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
So I go a for loop, I is 100, I would be used. First time I enter this local I, start with minus 500, becomes minus 499, start 499 and stays there. I exit, so this I is no more accessible, even though it has a life. And I print I is equal to 100 because of this. My loop is over. I go back to for loop. I increment I. So this I becomes 101. This I becomes 101, but I enter this block. The previous value I was minus 499. So when I plus plus, it becomes minus 498, and I would print minus 498. When I get outside the block, I was 101. We will print 101. We go back, I is 102. Condition does not match. It comes out. The moment it comes out, the 1 minute, guys. Hold on. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm in a class quickly. I'll call you. I'll call you. Sorry, guys. Now, the moment I am the first for loop, I'm come here. Now, this for loop, which you see in the blue circle, I starts with 10. So outside the yellow block, only this blue I would come here. I is 10, I would print I is equal to 10. My loop is over, I go back, I decrement I. So I becomes 9, I enter again this loop. I enter again, that means I start with I is equal to 100. I enter this block. This I had a life outside this block. Last value was minus 498. Now it becomes minus 497. So it will print minus 497. And the moment this block is over, I get my first value, it would be 100. I go back, make it 101. I print 101, come out. And now this I takes this I. That means it will be I is equal to 9. And loop would persist. Any questions about this? Deliberately, I made it multiple loops so that you understand the scoping. Any questions about this?
No, sir.
Now, can you spend 5 minutes and write the output? Then I run the program. See this program, write the output, what the output would be. And please note, I'm in the main function. In the main function, there is no I defined. When there is no I defined, we would take a global variable, whatever I is global variable here. This is I call a global variable. So this global is accessible within the main because inside the local function, we are setting it local variable here. So some a toy example, I'm trying to show you interaction between global, local, within the block, and lifetime outside the block. So next 5 minutes, can you write the output, what the output would be, so that you become clearer. And if you have doubt, ask me. I will run the program. If no doubts, spend 5 minutes, write out one piece of paper, and then we run the program and verify what it is. Can you guys see the program which is there? I hope you'll be able to see my program, the screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes or no? Tell me the output, what it would be. This is the output of the program. Verify your values. The program is uploaded into your MS Teams. You can look at there as well. Let me make sure that I upload it. If not, I'll upload it just to make sure. I think it may take time, so maybe I'll upload it, but let's work it out right now. Are we okay with this output? And see in the main, the value is 1000. Any questions about this? Chatra,
Yes, sir.
is it clear? Do you have any doubt?
No, sir. Once I'll practice this.
You have to practice. Anybody has any questions?
So like,
You need to
what is
practice.
the program supposed to do? What's the main reason of the program?
The main purpose of the program is to tell you how does the scope of a variable and lifetime of a variable works. That's what I'm telling you, it's a toy program.
Okay.
It doesn't do any useful work. It just tell you how the scope of the variable comes into the picture and lifetime. As I said, because of static, life
Yes.
exists outside this block.
Yes, sir.
But for all other blocks, life is within that block only. They get reinitialized.
Okay, sir.
And scope is within the block. They're the purpose. So practice it, look at it, and it should be fine. Let's move on.
Excuse me,
Other
sir.
thing I like to do is, let me also show you previously what I wanted to show.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, what is the use of that main in the last line, sir?
You're talking about this.
Yes, sir.
See, every program to run, you can have number of functions. How does the system know which is the starting point? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Like your house can have a number of doors. But when somebody has come to your house, they come via the main door. This is the entry exit point. They don't enter via any other point. Any guest, anybody comes, any letters, they always come to the main number. You might enter through the windows yourself, but anybody else, they know they have to enter the house, they have to enter a main door. So the other functions, you can look at windows of the house. But entry point of the one system has to start running, it has to know where to enter. And that is where each program should have a function called main. So that when a program starts running, it always starts from this point. It could be anywhere. That's why main should always be there so that system knows where to run. If you do not have a main, when you try to link after compilation, it says the no main found. Program won't be able to run. Without the main, you can main a library, but you cannot run a program. You can create a library somebody can use, but you cannot run a program. For program to run, you always need to have main entry point, like your house main gate. Did I make it clear?
Yes, sir.
So here I'm first saying call the function and then running one statement. Now let's look my project. I'm going to show you leave yes, min max. Look here, I defined 3 files. One you can see. Can you guys see the screen? One is the file main.c. I have another file called max.c. Another file called min.c. In the min.c, I defined a function fnmin with a keyword static. In the max function fnmax, I haven't defined the keyword static, but for the main, I defined the keyword static. So in the main, if I invoke this function fnmin, now because the static keyword is defined to a function, this fnmin function is visible only within this file min.c. This function is not visible outside. When you try to run, it says it cannot find a function. fnmin gives you an error. Let me give you run and you get the error, compilation error. You can say reference to fnmin because I have given static keyword. Now if I remove static, now this visible to outside as well. And now my program, I'll be able to run. And if you look at my command line, I'm taking command line arguments and look in both the fn max and min, I'm using the keyword static to the local variable. Because I'm using the keyword static local variable, that means these variables have a life outside this function. They can be used within this function. The variable curmin cannot be used anywhere. I cannot use this variable curmin in my main program. I can use the variable curmin within this function because of scoping, but it is a life outside this function. So next time you start, they take the next value. So what happens? I start with the max value. If new value is less than that, I set it to main. So look at the main. I pass number of arguments. First time invoke with 10, then with 20, then with 30. I invoke those values. So to always internally set cur max, keep updating it, and will maintain that last value because of static nature. So when I run the program, you'll see it returning a max 3434 and returning a main of 3. If we run the program, you'll see a max of 3434, main of 3. However, if I let's say remove static here in the cur main, if I remove the static in the cur main, but maintain my static in the fn max, because there's no static there, every time function call, cur means start with this value. So every time curmin would be set to whatever num is. So when I run my program, my max would be 3434, but min would the last time what I talk is 21, because you always start this value and set to whatever value it is. When you run the program, max is 3434, curmin is 21. Let me run this. You see, max is 3434. If I were to remove static from max as well, let's say I remove static from max as well. Now, when I run the program, what would the value printed of max and min? Guys, anybody? I remove the static from max, max. I remove the static from curmin. So now if you look at, every time they start with the int min, because they have a life within this function only. So that means every time I pass a value, that value would become the max. That value would become the curmin. So when I run the main, whatever the last value is, that would become my max and curmin. So when I run it, you will see curmin and max both are same. So that basically tells you, depending on the use, if you want to persist a variable, you want to define a lifetime of variable outside the function, use the keyword static. Otherwise, you can don't use the keyword. That means the life is at the moment function starts, the moment function is over, the life is over. So essentially, I highlighted difference between life of a variable and scope of a variable, and same is true for our the functions. Also, I would recommend you to use the debugger. So I'll just show you the debugger quickly. I know 5 minutes, I'll take 5 minutes and then close that. Let's say I want to run. To debug, I take to the line number, click it. The moment you see a red dot appearing, this becomes a debug point. I go to the main. Let's say I set here. I click it, the line number front. This becomes a debugger point. This becomes a debugger point. Now you can run a debug. When you run a debug, click on debug. It will go in a debug mode, and you get different windows. Start, continue, step over, so on and so forth. So just start the debugger, start program, start from main, come to the first breakpoint. So when I say start, it is stopping here. Right now, the mix value, man value is not defined. So you can see the window local variable called mix value and min value. You don't know what those values are. There could be anything. And since I have executed for loop, I is not even defined. Now, if I say continue here, it will go to next breakpoint. But if I want to execute line by line, I can say step over. When I do step over, it will go to line number 10. You go to line number 10 and you see I came into existence and variable I has become 1. If I want to run whole function as a single statement, I can say step over. But if I want to get into this function, I would say step into. Where it would go step into, it will go into that function, which is my fn max here. There is a breakpoint here. So step into goes in there. Sorry, okay. I don't have A2IC, so I cannot do step into here, but I can set a breakpoint here. So let me start again. Stop. So I put a debug. I can basically say start. I come to a breakpoint. I can say step over. And I put a breakpoint in this function. So if I say continue, it will stop there. Continue, just stop there. Now I can do step over one line at a time. And this you can see the current value, current max. I not executed this line. So current max is right now this value. The moment I execute a step over, it will say current max is num and say current max changing to 10, whatever value I'm passing. So I suggest you read that, read the blog, how to use online GEDB, and that will help you debugging your program. So I'm done for today. If any questions, let me know. Otherwise, we can discuss. Any questions,
you, sir.
please? If no, let me know.
Thank you, sir.
And we have a class on Monday. So if you have any questions, Monday I'll try to revise. So please send me your questions which you'd like me to discuss for the syllabus, for the exams. We can look at that and we can answer that. So Monday we'll discuss, send me your questions. Either you can give it to CR or send it to me and we can discuss those questions. If no questions, thank you. You can drop out.
Thank you, sir.